In the instant he enters, a man crosses the threshold where persona meets shadow, and love begins only if he dares to stay. Carl Jung.
Stop. Don't move. Don't rush. Because the moment before he enters you is the most powerful second you'll ever hold. In that silence, everything begins to unfold. Desire, trust, surrender, and the mystery of what it means to be truly seen. If you know what to do with that moment, he'll never forget you. Not in his body, not in his bones, not in the quiet hours when he reaches for what feels like home. Carl Jung taught that what is unconscious always seeks expression, and in intimacy, that expression begins long before touch. It lives in energy, in the eyes that don't look away, in the breath that slows down instead of speeding up. It's not about performance or technique, but about presence, the calm authority of a woman who knows her own depth. Because when your awareness fills the space between you, you awaken something ancient in him. His instinct meets your soul. His desire meets your energy. And that is when he trembles, not from lust, but from reverence. In this video from Jungian Mind Shift, we will explore 6 hidden Jungian secrets inside that sacred pause and how to use them to turn intimacy into transformation. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes intimacy can be more than physical, it can be sacred.
The eyes, the archetypal mirror.
They say the eyes never lie, but Jung would tell you the truth runs even deeper. The eyes are where the anima and the animus recognize each other. When two souls meet through a gaze, what unfolds is not flirtation or seduction, but a silent remembrance. Something ancient stirs, the memory of the masculine and feminine that have been seeking one another across lifetimes of longing and denial. Imagine this, 2 bodies close, breaths trembling in the same rhythm. The air between them thick with anticipation. She does not look away. She does not hide behind a shy smile or the practiced lowering of her gaze. Her eyes soften, yet they do not break. In that moment, she becomes the mirror he did not know he was searching for. The mirror that does not judge or demand, only reflects what is real. For a man, this is disarming. The masculine psyche, armored by years of control and performance, is not used to being seen. He knows how to chase, how to conquer, and how to perform strength. But being seen, truly seen, by the feminine gaze is terrifying and holy at once. Jung wrote that the anima represents the soul image within a man. And when he meets a woman whose presence mirrors that inner image, he feels both fascination and fear. He is drawn to her not because of beauty alone, but because his unconscious recognizes home. Her eyes become the threshold between the outer world and his inner one. When she holds his gaze without collapsing into fear or needing validation, she becomes the archetype of the seer, the one who witnesses without trying to fix or own. And in that gaze, he meets his own shadow. The parts of him he hides behind ambition, logic, or charm begin to surface. She does not flinch. She sees his strength and his brokenness, his confidence and his confusion, and she remains. This is where transformation begins, what Jung called mirror recognition. When the soul recognizes itself in another, it is not lust. It is a reunion of archetypes. The masculine sees the feminine not as an object, but as an oracle. And the feminine, when she holds her awareness steady, does not give herself away. She reveals herself as consciousness in form. The power of her gaze lies in what it does not demand. She does not plead to be adored. She does not chase affection. Her stillness becomes the altar where the masculine can finally rest from the endless proving. In that silence, desire purifies itself, into reverence. So when she looks at him, she does not invite lust, she invites remembrance. Through her eyes, he remembers who he truly is, not the roles he plays, but the soul he forgot to honor. That is the alchemy of the eyes, the meeting of Eros and awareness, the fusion of body and psyche, the moment when love stops pretending and becomes consciousness itself.
Number 2. The whisper, the voice of the inner feminine.
There comes a point in intimacy where words stop serving the mind and begin speaking for the soul. Jung often said that the unconscious does not speak in logic, but in symbols, sensations, and tones. The whisper is one of those languages. It carries what the conscious self cannot say directly, the truth that trembles beneath performance, the longing that wants to be known without being explained. Picture her leaning in close enough for her breath to brush his ear. The room falls away. What she says may be only a few words, yet they travel through him like music through water. I feel safe with you. I want you. I'm here. These are not rehearsed lines. They rise spontaneously, born from the body's quiet intelligence. In Jungian psychology, this is the anima speaking, the feminine aspect of the psyche that lives not in the head, but in the heart and breath. For Jung, every act of love is a conversation between two unconscious minds. When she whispers from authenticity rather than strategy, she bypasses the ego entirely. The ego shouts to be heard. The soul only needs to be felt. Her whisper carries a vibration that tells him, "You are seen." And that simple recognition can melt years of repression in a man's emotional body. It is not manipulation, it is a return. Most men live separated from their inner life. Society trains them to be rational, decisive, and self-contained. Jung observed that the masculine principle, logos, values order and control, while the feminine principle, Eros, values connection and flow. When a woman speaks from her Eros, soft, present, unguarded, she invites the masculine logos to balance itself. She reminds him that reason without tenderness becomes cruelty, and that strength without sensitivity becomes hollow. The whisper awakens the part of him that longs for integration. It is not the words themselves that pierce him, but the energy behind them. Jung called this erotic truth, the merging of desire with consciousness. When she whispers with awareness, she is not seeking validation or arousal. She is giving permission for vulnerability to exist. Her tone tells him that it is safe to drop the mask of the hero and become human again. This act might seem small, but it moves energy on a profound level. The whisper carries the frequency of the self, the central archetype of wholeness in Jung's system. It unites the conscious and the unconscious for a brief instant. Two psyches meet in resonance, and something unnamed is healed. The man does not tremble from lust alone. He trembles because, for a moment, he feels what Jung called individuation through connection, the soul remembering itself through another. So when she leans in and lets her voice come from the heart instead of the mind, she becomes the bridge between his intellect and his instinct, between his fear and his freedom. She does not need to say much. One true sentence, spoken with presence, carries more power than 1,000 practiced lines. In that moment, her whisper is not about seduction. It is about remembrance. It is the sound of the feminine soul calling the masculine home. Ask yourself quietly, when was the last time your words came from the soul instead of the mind? Do you still know how to speak softly enough that the truth can be heard?
Number 3. The breath, the rhythm of Eros.
Breath, the rhythm of Eros. Breath is the bridge between the body and the psyche. Jung wrote that the spirit and the soul meet in breath because breath is both unconscious and conscious, a rhythm we can control or surrender to. In sacred intimacy, this rhythm becomes a conversation between two energies. Every inhale is an invitation. Every exhale is a release. The way you breathe can awaken or silence the entire field between you. Close your eyes and imagine it. Two people, close enough that their lungs begin to mirror each other. She inhales slowly, deeply, her ribs expanding as if to make space for the moment. He follows without thinking, drawn into her tempo. It is not dominance or control, it is harmony. The ancient languages of Tantra and Taoism both call breath the doorway to divine union, the current of Eros that connects one consciousness to another. Jung, though he never used the word Tantra, spoke of the same truth, that the psyche and the body are not separate, and that Eros is the life force that keeps them in dialogue. Modern psychology has begun to rediscover what Jung intuited almost a century ago. Research from the University of California found that synchronized breathing between partners can increase emotional attunement and even reduce cortisol levels, the hormone of stress. Another study in Frontiers in Psychology suggested that when couples consciously slow their breath together, their heart rates and nervous systems begin to align, creating what neuroscientists call physiological resonance. What Jung described as the merging of Eros and Logos now appears measurable in the rhythms of the body. Yet not every psychologist agrees with Jung's mystical reading. Cognitive theorists argue that what we interpret as energetic union is simply the brain's mirror neuron system, a network that allows one person to mimic the behavior and emotions of another unconsciously. To them, intimacy is biological, not spiritual. Jung would not have disagreed entirely. He believed the sacred always expresses itself through matter. The body, for him, was the stage where the unconscious becomes visible. When a woman breathes with awareness, she steps into her archetypal role as the priestess of Eros. She is not manipulating or performing. She is regulating the shared emotional field. Her steady breath tells his nervous system, you are safe. It invites his masculine energy to soften without losing strength. Slowly, his body entrains to hers, and the polarity between them transforms from tension to flow. Breath also reveals truth. When it becomes shallow, rushed, uneven, it shows fear or repression. When it is deep and slow, it signals presence. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires the courage to stay conscious within intensity. Conscious breathing during intimacy is exactly that practice. It is meditation in motion. So before the body moves, pause. Feel the air entering you, leaving you, carrying life itself. Let it slow you down until your awareness fills the entire room. When your breath becomes conscious, you are no longer waiting for him to lead. You are leading both of you back to the center. In this rhythm, the physical and the psychological dissolve into one. The breath becomes prayer. Desire becomes devotion. And in that quiet balance, two souls remember that the same air moving through one heart moves through the other.
Number 4. The touch. When desire becomes devotion. Some touches awaken the body, and some awaken the soul. The first stirs sensation, the second reveals the truth. Jung believed that beneath every urge to touch lies an older longing, the desire to be seen without pretense, to be met not as a role, but as a soul. Each time one hand reaches for another, something deep within whispers, I want to be known, not possessed. A woman lifts his face between her palms. The movement is unhurried, simple, full of quiet authority. No seduction, no strategy, only presence. He expects pleasure, but feels release. For an instant, the mask of strength slips away. His breath falters, his body softens. Jung would say this is the moment when the ego yields to the self, when personality dissolves and essence steps forward. Touch for Jung was a symbol of the psyche's search for wholeness. Conscious touch bridges the gap between two unconscious worlds. When a woman touches with awareness, she embodies the archetype of the healer, transforming desire into connection. Her hands carry the energy of acceptance. They do not demand or convince, they invite. Modern research supports what Jung sensed intuitively. At the University of Miami's Touch Research Institute, studies show that mindful contact calms the nervous system, reduces stress hormones, and deepens emotional regulation. Yet numbers cannot explain what truly happens. Science measures the physical, but the sacred hides in the unspoken, the meaning behind the gesture, the energy that moves beneath the skin. Jung compared human love to the myth of a divine child separated from its source. Every touch, he said, was an attempt to bridge that primal loss. That is why shallow touch often feels hollow, and why one genuine touch can bring tears. The hand becomes a bridge between fear and belonging, between isolation and homecoming. To touch with awareness is to face the hidden wound of separation. It means holding without claiming, feeling without consuming. When a woman's touch says, "You are safe to be real," she gives permission for vulnerability to exist. The masculine heart, conditioned to perform, finally rests. He trembles not from lust, but from recognition, from the quiet shock of being fully received. Touch at its highest form is prayer through skin. It turns the body into language, the moment into healing. When touch carries intention, it sanctifies what the world has made ordinary. So before your hands meet, pause. Let your palms remember what they are capable of. Not conquest, but communion. When you touch with awareness, the act stops being physical. It becomes the meeting of two consciousnesses, the place where desire transforms into devotion.
Number 5. Saying his name. The invocation of the masculine. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet the paradox of modern love is that most people never get to be seen as who they are. They're seen as roles, as functions, as projections of another's need. The man becomes the protector, the provider, the one who must not falter. And beneath that armor, a quieter truth hides. He too longs to be known, to be called, not commanded, to be named, not needed. When a woman speaks his name with presence, she breaks that trance of performance. She does not call the hero or the provider. She calls the human. The sound of his name, shaped by her breath, reaches parts of him that language rarely touches. It bypasses the mind and enters the field of the soul. What she awakens is not pride, but remembrance. For a moment, he remembers that he is not only the mask the world gave him. Jung believed that a name carries psychic energy, a living symbol of the self. When spoken consciously, it acts like a key turning in the unconscious. Her tone, calm and sincere, releases something buried. It tells him, "You are not an object of expectation. You are a being worthy of tenderness." In therapy, Jung noticed that people often identify with their wounds more than with their wholeness. The victim becomes addicted to suffering, the achiever to proving, the lover to being needed. When she says his name with awareness, she interrupts that identification. She names not the victim, but the soul beneath it. Her voice becomes a mirror that reflects what is still alive, not what has been broken. Modern research only echoes this old wisdom. Neuroscientists have found that hearing one's name lights up the brain's emotional centers, evoking feelings of safety and belonging. But beyond science lies meaning. The power is not in the sound itself, but in the consciousness that carries it. When her voice holds truth, his nervous system recognizes home. Jung would call this a moment of integration, the merging of logos and eros, mind and emotion, order and connection. The masculine within him relaxes under the gaze of the feminine that does not demand, only sees. He trembles not from desire, but from relief. For once, he is allowed to exist without proving. Pause for a breath. Think of someone whose name you speak often. Do you use it to summon their presence, or to remind them of who they already are? Awareness turns an ordinary word into prayer. In the old myths, speaking the true name of a god gave mortals access to divine power. The same mystery lives in love. When you call someone by their name with consciousness and care, you do not possess them. You awaken them. You remind them that they are more than a role in your story. They are a soul, called back into being by the music of your voice.
Number 6. The pause, the feminine command of time. Carl Jung once performed a psychological experiment called the word association test. He would read a list of words and ask his patients to respond instantly with whatever came to mind. What caught his attention were not the answers, but the pauses. Whenever someone hesitated, even briefly, Jung knew he had touched a hidden complex, a memory or emotion buried in the unconscious. That pause revealed what the words could not. Silence, he realized, is where truth hides. The same law applies to intimacy. Just before the final moment, when everything inside urges movement, the deepest power is to stop, to hold still, to breathe, and to stay conscious inside desire. The pause is not denial. It is awareness in its purest form, the point where instinct becomes devotion. A woman who can pause does not fear intensity. She listens to it. Her stillness commands the moment without force. It tells the masculine beside her that presence matters more than performance. Jung called this the numinous moment, the sacred space where body and psyche, masculine and feminine, meet without disguise. Modern research echoes what Jung intuited. Psychologists at Harvard found that micro-pauses during emotional connection increase empathy and synchronize nervous systems. Silence, it turns out, creates resonance. When she pauses, her energy steadies both of them. His heartbeat slows to match hers. The entire field of intimacy deepens. Jung believed the feminine principle carries the rhythm of the unconscious, circular, timeless, and patient. The pause is its purest expression. While the masculine moves toward action, the feminine holds the world still enough to feel it. In that stillness, she becomes time itself. She is no longer waiting, she is shaping the space between moments. He senses it immediately. The absence of motion draws him closer than any touch. His breath softens. The hunger turns to awe. The pause teaches him that connection is not about climax, but depth. not about finishing, but arriving fully. So when you find yourself at the edge of intensity, pause. Let silence fill the room. Let your breath speak instead of your body. Because within that stillness, something greater than pleasure is born. The feeling of presence. The return to consciousness. That is where love stops being human and starts becoming sacred.
10 seconds before the threshold. 10 seconds. That is all it takes to decide whether the moment becomes noise or memory. When everything slows, when breath softens and silence begins to hum between you, do not turn away. Stay inside the quiet. What happens after the act is not ending, it is meaningful. First, breathe. Not to recover, but to return. Let the air move gently through your chest. Feel how your heartbeat still echoes his. That rhythm is the language of what remains. Then, stillness. Do not rush to fix, to speak, to fill the air. Let the silence stretch until it feels full. This is how the unconscious integrates the sacred. Jung called this the return of the self, the reunion of body and awareness. Next, the eyes. Find him again. Not as a lover to perform for, but as a mirror of what you both became. Soft gaze, no effort. You are no longer looking at him, you are looking through him, back into yourself. Then, the hand. Trace the space between you. Touch not to ignite, but to remember. Let your palm rest on his chest, a silent reminder that what just happened was not possession, but recognition. Finally, the surrender. Not to him, but to stillness. Let the body soften. Let gratitude rise. This is the final offering to honor what was shared without holding on. 10 seconds. That is all. Yet within them lives the truth Jung tried to teach. The soul does not awaken through climax, but through consciousness. When you can stay present in the aftermath, love stops being an event and becomes eternity. Where two souls meet consciously, the divine appears. Carl Jung's words remind us that real intimacy cannot be taught, only lived. It is not technique that opens the heart, but awareness. The sacred moment arises when a woman no longer performs, when she rests in the quiet power of knowing who she is. From that stillness, she becomes a mirror through which love remembers its own holiness. When two people meet in that space, the masculine softens, the feminine expands, and something far greater than desire begins to move through them. Jung once said, "Through the feminine, the divine enters the world." Each breath, each gaze, each pause becomes proof of that truth. You did not give him your body. You gave him an experience of your essence, a glimpse of the eternal within the ordinary. That is what endures long after the night is gone. If this message spoke to something quiet inside you, take a moment to like the video, subscribe for more Jungian reflections, and share what this idea of sacred connection means to you. Your story might be the mirror that helps someone else awaken.